Amid all the talk of tariffs, you've probably heard about interprovincial trade barriers through statements on social media from premiers and federal leaders.
Our new top trading partner will be Canada. But don't we already have free trade with ourselves? Nope.
So why don't we? What are interprovincial trade barriers, and how could removing them pay off if we end up in a trade war with the U.S.?
Let's get back to an early one, I think is the best explanation. In the early 2000s, there was a agricultural crisis in the West. BC had a bad hay harvest, there was drought. Alberta had an abundance. But it was quickly discovered that if we were going to move hay, it had to be offloaded at the provincial border and reloaded onto trucks in British Columbia because of trade rules.
Dade says some provincial regulations make sense, like needing to speak French if you're building houses in Quebec. But restrictions between provinces can act as a barrier, ultimately leading to more exports leaving Canada.
But some brilliant person at the table thought, well, wait a minute, if we ship it down to Coutts, ship it into Montana, go around Glacier, come up the other side in Bruceville or Kingsgate, we don't have to offload, and that's more efficient than loading and offloading at the border.
And that can become a bigger problem if you're dealing with tariffs between countries. Data from Statistics Canada suggests that in 2023, almost 2/3 of exports from Alberta went to other countries. So, how have provinces changed the different rules and regulations that cause these barriers between them?
This realization that, look, this just doesn't make sense, there's money being wasted, has led to two attempts. The first, the New West Partnership, originally between BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan, that came out of the hay example. The second was a national attempt to replicate what we did in the West on the national stage. This is the Canada Free Trade Agreement. But as you can imagine, as you expand the number of people sitting at the table, the number of petty grievances and things that are important to a certain constituency that's key to the next election mount.
On top of that, free trade doesn't just mean goods, it also includes labor.
If you allow workers from other provinces to come in to build homes, then the construction industry, which may be inefficient, but it's been able to be inefficient because they've had no competition. But suddenly they get more competition, they go out of business. Well, you can be sure that several MLAs are going to be getting phone calls, the premier is going to be getting letters, and there's going to be a huge stink. Alberta certainly has been the leader under successive premiers, including the one we have now. But this has been an ongoing effort. We got to the point where we don't have to go through the U.S. to move hay. So let's see if we can get to the point where we can do even more business up here and take advantage of this Canadian market.
Although getting every province to agree has proven difficult, if it happens, it could have a large economic impact within Canada. For example, Dade wants to see Ontario sign on to agreements with Western provinces, similar to the hay example. That, Dade says, would join two of the country's biggest economic regions. Internal Trade Minister Anita Anand says removing interprovincial barriers could add up to $200 billion to the domestic economy. Jo Horwood, CBC News, Calgary.